What I know is that
will you take
everything I
accountability?
share, everything I talk about,
Mr.
as
Secretary, does
of Defense,
accountability apply to you or not?
is classified whether I talk or not.
Does it apply to you or not?
Does what apply to me or not?
Accountability. You said accountability is back at the Secretary.
And you know what? The Houthis were held accountable for shooting at our
I'm
ship
just asking if it applies to
very
you.
successfully.
I'm not asking about the
previous
Houthis.
administration let our ships get shot at, and nothing was done about it. And thankfully, because of the skill and courage of our troops on the battlefield,
asking about
we
I
actually
reclaim my
put them
time.
in a place
I
where
reclaim
they
my time.
called for a ceasefire.
I claim my time. I'm just asking if accountability applies to you. It's a very simple question.
Let me break this down for you, because what you're about to see is not just another boring congressional hearing. This is a full-blown exposure. This is what happens when a Trump official gets caught red-handed protecting Trump, and a Democrat comes in prepared, focused, and ready to pin them down with facts. We're talking about Representative Moulton here, and let me tell you, he does not play their game. He comes in with one simple mission: get a straight answer. But here's the problem. When you're dealing with someone like Hegseth, a Trump-aligned official, straight answers don't exist. What you get instead is dodging, deflecting, and a whole lot of word salad designed to confuse you. Now here's the setup. Moulton is asking about something very serious: the texting of military launch times for F-18s heading into combat zones. Let that sink in. We're not talking about casual chatter. We're talking about operational military details, planes going into hostile territory, facing anti-aircraft missiles. And what does Moulton want to know? A basic question: where did that information come from, and was it classified? That's it. Simple. Yes or no. But watch what happens. Because instead of answering directly, Hegseth immediately starts dancing around the question. And that's your first red flag. When someone refuses to answer a basic yes or no question about national security, you already know something's off. Check this out. This is where it starts to completely fall apart.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes a gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Moulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Hegseth, I'd like to clarify a few important details for the record. When you texted the launch time for F-18s going into combat over enemy territory facing anti-aircraft missiles on an unclassified signal chat, did that launch time come from Central Command, yes or no?
I know what you're referring to, and there were no
It's a very simple question. Did it come from? It's a very simple
or-
question. Did it come from Central Command?
Well, in this committee, no way in which I communicate or what I communicate on a successful strike is something that I would share.
So you can't even identify the combatant command under which this operation occurred?
Well, everybody knows the
Okay, so everyone knows it's Central Command. So when Central Command sent you this information, did they send it on a classified system or an unclassified system?
Well, as you know, having served yourself, any way that the Secretary of Defense communicates or provides information in and of itself is classified and not to be discussed.
So what was the classification marking of the launch time when it was sent to you? Because DoD regulations require information on classified systems to be marked.
What was the classification mark time?
Yeah. What was the classification marking? Because
Again,
DoD
classifications of any information in an ongoing operation that was successful are not things that would be disclosed in a public forum.
But you can very well disclose whether or not it was classified. It's not classified to disclose whether or not it was classified. And in fact, DoD regulations state that any classified information has to be labeled with its classification. Was it classified secret or top secret?
What's not classified is that it was an incredibly successful mission against the Houthis.
Okay, so it was classified. So are you trying to say that the information was unclassified?
I'm not
Okay,
trying to say
that's what
anything.
I thought. You're not saying that. So you took classified information from Central Command that had a classification marking on it, because that's what's required by DoD regulations, and you put it on an unclassified system. So we're going to get a report in a few days from the DoD Inspector General. And if the DoD Inspector General finds what is pretty obvious, both to use...
Did you catch that? Because that right there is the moment everything begins to unravel. Moulton asks a direct question. Did the launch time come from Central Command? Yes or no? And what does Hegseth do? He stalls. He dodges. He refuses to answer. That's not a defense. That's a deflection. Let me break it down for you. In any normal situation, especially involving national security, if there's nothing wrong, you answer the question. You say yes or no, you clarify, and you move on. But Hegseth doesn't do that. Instead, he hides behind vague statements like, I wouldn't discuss that here, or everything I communicate is classified. Wait a minute. That's actually the problem. Because if everything you communicate is classified, and you just admitted that, then why was that information being shared on an unclassified signal chat? Here's the kicker. Moulton catches him in his own logic trap. He says, okay, if it came from Central Command, and if DoD regulations require classification markings, then that information must have been classified. So now, Hegseth is stuck. He can't say it wasn't classified, because that contradicts his own statements. But he also doesn't want to admit it was classified, because that means he just exposed sensitive military information on an unsecured platform. This isn't confusion. This is a cover-up. And you can see it on his face, the hesitation, the vague answers, the refusal to commit. Meanwhile, Moulton is laser-focused. He's not letting him wiggle out of this. He brought the receipts. And notice something else. Every time Moulton narrows it down, Hegseth tries to broaden the conversation. He starts talking about successful missions and what can be disclosed. That's a classic move. This isn't about the success of the mission. This is about whether classified information was mishandled. This isn't patriotism. This is negligence. And Moulton knows it. That's why he keeps pushing, keeps tightening the questions, forcing Hegseth into a corner where the truth becomes unavoidable. But what happens next? That's where things really go off the rails.
Smiling there in the witness seat and to all of us up here that the information was, in fact, classified. Do you plan to take any accountability for that?
As I pointed out at the time...
you said that accountability is back. Does that not apply to you?
As I said at the time, Congressman, there were no names, targets, locations, units, routes, sources, methods, no classified information.
Okay, so if it comes back that it is classified, will you take accountability or not? We've already established, you've already admitted that it was classified because everything you get from CENTCOM is classified. You just explained that to me. That's how you justified not answering the question.
Not what I said. I didn't confirm any classification or
Okay, so if it is
what
confirmed,
I know is that
will you take
everything I
accountability?
share, everything I talk about,
Mr. Secretary, does accountability apply to you or not?
Is classified whether I talk or not.
Does it apply to you or not?
Does what apply to me?
Accountability. You said accountability is back at the Secretary.
And you know what? The Houthis were held accountable for shooting at our
I'm
ships
just asking if it applies to you.
very successfully.
I'm not asking about the
previous
Houthis.
administration let our ships get shot at, and nothing was done about it. And thankfully, because of the skill and courage of our troops on the battlefield,
I'm just asking about
we
I
actually
reclaim my
put them
time.
in a place
I
where
reclaim
they
my time.
called for a ceasefire.
I reclaim my time. I'm just asking if accountability applies to you. It's a very simple question. We use leadership by example.
Of course. Unlike, I serve at the pleasure of the president like everybody else does.
So it only applies to the president, not to you.
I serve at the pleasure.
You talked about the success of the Houthi operation. About how much money did it cost? How much money did you spend on missiles shooting at the Houthis?
Well, you'd have to compare that with what it cost.
I'm just asking how much did it cost?
Divert our shipping lanes around.
I'm told it's several $100 million, maybe close to $1 billion. How many U.S.-flagged commercial ships have transited the Red Sea since your so-called successful operation?
Well, thankfully, unlike the previous administration,
the answer is zero.
Military vessels transit.
No, I didn't ask about military vessels. I
which
asked
would
about
be the
commercial
precursor
vessels.
for
how many commercial vessels?
Transit,
it's been several weeks. How many commercial vessels, U.S. flagged, have transited
well,
the Red
would you, Mr. Congressman, put civilian ships?
The
through
questions
dam
are not to
before
me,
military
Mr. Secretary.
ships?
They're to you.
We have responsibly put military.
The answer is
ships
zero.
through first.
I reclaim my time. How many generals and admirals have you fired?
I don't know the exact number. But
you don't know the number. It's 8. Can you explain why any of them were fired? Like, just explain why was the Army JAG fired? Why did you fire him?
They all serve at the pleasure of the president, and I think.
No, I'm just asking you why.
General Kane is a great example.
I'm just asking you why.
That we
and
need
you probably learned at Princeton what why means. Why did you fire him?
They serve at the pleasure of the president, and we want better representation in each and every of those.
You can't explain why you fired any of them?
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Scott.
All right. Now this is where it gets absolutely devastating. Moulton shifts gears and asks the most important question of all: accountability. Simple question: if the Inspector General confirms that this was classified information, will you take responsibility? And what does Hegseth do? He dodges again. He starts talking about no names, no targets, no locations, completely missing the point. Because that's not the standard. The standard is whether the information itself was classified. That's not a defense. That's a deflection. And Moulton doesn't let it slide. He calls it out immediately. He basically says, you already admitted everything from Central Command is classified. You just said that. So which is it? And Hegseth? He backtracks. He says, that's not what I said. Oh, really? Because we all just heard it. This is what it looks like when someone gets caught red-handed protecting Trump's system of chaos and secrecy. They start contradicting themselves. They start rewriting what they just said seconds ago. This is not leadership. This is damage control. And then, just when you think it can't get worse, Hegseth pivots to talking about the Houthis, about previous administrations, about anything except the question being asked. Classic move. When you can't defend your actions, you change the subject. But Moulton? He shuts it down. He reclaims his time. He brings it right back to accountability. Because that's the whole point. Does accountability apply to you? And here's the moment that says everything. Hegseth basically admits he serves at the pleasure of the president. Translation? Accountability doesn't come from the law or the Constitution or the American people. It comes from Trump. That's Trump's America, where loyalty matters more than truth, where protecting the president matters more than protecting classified information. And Moulton exposes it in real time. But he doesn't stop there. He keeps digging. He asks about the cost of the operation. He asks about actual results. How many U.S. commercial ships have passed through the Red Sea since this so-called successful mission? And the answer? 0. Let that sink in. Hundreds of millions, maybe close to $1 billion, spent, and not a single U.S. commercial ship has benefited. So what exactly was the success here? This isn't strategy. This is spin. And then, the final blow, Moulton asks about the firing of military leaders. Generals, admirals, high-ranking officials, 8 of them. And Hegseth can't explain why. Not one reason. He just repeats the same line, they serve at the pleasure of the president. That's it. No justification, no transparency, no accountability. This is a pattern. This is what happens when leadership is replaced with loyalty tests, when experienced military officials are pushed out, and no one can even explain why. It completely fell apart, and Moulton made sure everyone saw it. He didn't shout. He didn't grandstand. He just asked the right questions and let Hegseth expose himself. That's how you hold power accountable. That's how you cut through the noise and get to the truth. And this right here? This is exactly why hearings like this matter. Because without people like Moulton stepping up, this kind of behavior just continues unchecked. Unchecked leaks. Unchecked secrecy. Unchecked power. And that's dangerous. This isn't politics. This is national security. This isn't oversight. This is exposure. And now the question becomes, what happens next? If you want more breakdowns like this, where Trump officials get held accountable, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about Hegseth and whether he should resign after this explosive hearing.